So these are two different covenants. Same God in both, in new, old and new. Same God. And yes, Jesus referred to himself as the Son of God, but because he was here. However, I want to read, because I'm sure this has crossed people's minds. I mean, it has forever for me, but I'm just really not sure. No, I don't get why the priests, pastors all say that, no, we're brothers and sisters with the Jews. Okay, well, I don't hate them, so let's not go to the anti place. I don't. What I really want is to see less innocent people get killed of all different religions. But that said, by saying that these are two and one and the same is then disregarding Jesus. You can't just say I'm going to stick with the God of this book, but ignore that one, because then you've violated, you've angered God. You have. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm just saying, then if you wonder why your country's always at war and there's rockets flying into your land, I don't know, why don't you guys ever stop and think about, maybe we've upset the real God. Maybe it has something to do with Jesus too. Because Jesus was, like, some of them will look at Jesus as a prophet. No, Moses was. There's many people in the Old Testament that were prophets, but they didn't perform miracles on people. They didn't raise from the dead or raise people from the dead. There's a reason that Jesus had the disciples write everything down, because he knew this time would come when somebody would try to dispute this stuff. And the Gospels would prove, no, all of these men wrote their words differently of what they saw Jesus do. And yet, again, nobody does all that for a lie. They went on to be persecuted, hunted, and killed for it. You don't do that for a lie. You do that because you know it's the truth. And on top of that, I don't know how Judaism gets around the fact that Jesus resurrected, which is part of the Gospels. That's not like any prophet throughout any of the Bible, old or new. Or old, I mean. So they seek, Judaism teaches that Jesus of Nazareth was not the Messiah, the Son of God. In the Jewish perspective, the way Christians see Jesus goes against monotheism, a belief in an absolute unity and singularity of God. Yeah, God is a singularity. He was Jesus in the flesh, though. That's why he referred to himself as the Son of God. This is why Jesus said, you will not know me if you don't know the Father. That should have been key for all Jews. It should have been. It should have been absolute, the answer right there, or the resurrection alone. But that should have been, so because what Jesus is saying is that you don't know me because you don't know my Father. No prophet has said that. Not even the ones that went on that were filled with the Holy Spirit said stuff like that. So, some parts of Judaism see the worshiping of Jesus as idolatry, which is blasphemous to think that. So I don't know why the priests and pastors are just like, yeah, we're one and the same. No, we're really not. I mean, yeah, we're all people that believe different things. I get it. But I'm just saying, like, let's just be honest about it when it comes to the Bible. Because saying I'm a different group of people, and it's okay with God for us to just follow this, but we can ignore this part of God, would anger God. And then what happens when God gets angry? Well, he lifts protection off your country. And it takes a lot to get him angry. But the Jews have been being attacked forever. And then they relate it back to, that's because we're the chosen people. No, that's the New Testament was the new covenant, which was for many people. But it seems like, and this is not anti-Jew, don't even start that shit with me, because I am not anti-anybody. I'm just saying, I'm just being honest here. It's like you want to stay in the Old Testament and say that this would be okay with God because we're special. I just, I think Jesus, with many things he said it all. He said, you don't know me because you don't know my Father. This is no different than Jesus mocking the rabbis back when he was walking the earth. I said for years now, I said, Jesus didn't go to them because they wouldn't hear him. It's the same thing going on today. They decide it's this idea, I'm going to justify, I'm good with God because I practice the Torah, I practice the Old Testament. No, you're not. How is that being good with God? You're ignoring a whole new covenant God made. And then yet you don't even look at your own history and see that you've had all this crisis and everything happen to you and realize that maybe it's you, the people. Because it's kind of important to know something Moses said, because that's, Moses was the prophet who they followed and who they listened to because God spoke through Moses. And in Deuteronomy 31:29, Moses tells the Israelites, for I know that after my death you will act corruptly and turn from the way which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the later days. For you will do that which is evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger with the work of your hands. This verse is the context of Deuteronomy 28 through 32 and Leviticus 26. God is establishing the covenant with his people. God promises his people both coming blessings for obedience and curses for disobedience. With the amount of attacks that Israel has had throughout just my adult life alone, maybe they should have realized it's a curse. Instead, we're told it's about land or it's about them being the holy people. No, the new covenant was made. God wanted to end sacrifice. God was never going to keep animal sacrifices as a continuing thing. First of all, because it got to a point it was senseless. God didn't want to hurt the animals. The point was so it would make the people feel bad that an innocent animal had to die because of your poor behavior. It was teaching. God was teaching people way back then. But then things advance. There's more people. There's a little bit more modern Roman Empire. And so a new covenant is made. And if you doubt that, then I would say go back to the Tower of Babel when God says, when he notices what the people are doing, and in the verse it says we must go down there and disrupt their activities. I'm paraphrasing, but he says we. Who's we? I mean, maybe the Jews would say that it's the angels. I don't think. No, he's saying God. He's saying Jesus. Jesus is sitting at the right hand. So it was even before the new. That's in the old Tower of Babel's in the Old Testament. The biggest religion that is practiced is Christianity. Next, and actually the last, when it comes to percentage-wise, the last is Judaism. Yet, they've been being attacked for a long time. If God is pleased with you, that stuff doesn't happen. Not on the level it's happened. I'm not trying to take a whole ethnic group and say they're all. I'm just trying to be honest that a lot of people have taught many people wrong about this. You don't get to just say I don't want to have anything to do with Jesus' teaching and I'm just sticking to the Old Testament. That would anger God because you didn't know him well enough to recognize when he came. Which proves why he didn't go to the scholars of Judaism or the scholars of the church back then, because they were too filled with making themselves God. And then what ends up happening is that carries on and is taught. And it's like, no, that whatever's being taught isn't being passed on, much like why the Holy Spirit hasn't been taught, that's the main connection, your main connection. In the Old Testament, you really wouldn't have it. So maybe look at current history and past and look at maybe the fact that you've angered God and turn back to him and recognize Jesus. Just a suggestion.